agencies that are affected by what we do in this whole ICT thing, how do we make sure that there's benefit to everyone? And if so, what are the benefits to those people? It takes time to sit down and work these things out and to be able to say to people, listen, this is what's in it for you. And to begin to have a conversation around that. It's also about inspiring style-relevant communication. Everybody does not communicate the way I do. There are some people who are sitting there saying, this man stand up there talking, his hand going all over the place, but I'm not hearing any theory in this. Where's the research? I didn't see any graphs go up on that screen yet. So we had some graphs a little. Some people like numbers. They like graphs. They like logic. Some people say, see, all you said that talk, I want that. Just tell me what to do. Point me and set and get me. People have different styles and people communicate differently, you know. There's something that's called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And I say some people are visuals. Paint them a picture and they're gone. The auditories, they want facts. The kinesthetics, they're feelers. And once they have a good feeling in their gut about it, they will buy it. We have to know how people listen and how they tune in. And in promoting the transformation, our communication has to resonate with those different styles. You know, I say to people, when I do things like this in large groups, I tell them that, you know, I understand that there are people with different styles in here. So when I start, I'll say, you know, well, you know, one of the interesting things about preparing for this, and I give me a little bouillon and pepper pot joke, so some people laugh and say, okay. Now the rest of the people saying, wait, is a comedian Jennifer bringing or this is, I mean, when we're going to get down to some real material here, they say, anyway, this is what we're going to do, boom, boom, boom. At some point I might put up some graphs and then the people who are a little more analytical will say, okay, yes, that makes sense. And then the reason we're doing all this is because, you know, it's for the benefit of the people and the quality of life for the people in the region, and the other kind of people, they will feel warm and fuzzy and they'll say yes. Now, in a message, as we message, we have to message on all of those wavelengths. Because we have across this region a wide range of people, and our style in promoting transformation has to be style relevant. We also have to have a personal belief and commitment in this thing. People know when you're lying. It's as simple as that. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. Do I really believe this thing? And if so, what about it am I uneasy with? What about it am I really convinced about and committed to? We have to look at that and challenge ourselves to do that. If we don't do that personal growing piece, we go out there mouthing words, but really not being able to promote the transformation in the way that it ought to be. So it's about promoting transformation, but it's also about implementing changes. And what are some of the issues in implementing change? Well, one of the issues is organizational and systemic readiness. You know, is the organizations or the systems that we're going with, are they ready? What is their experience with change? Have they had too much experience with change? Are they just tired? Oh gosh, not another thing again. You know, where are they in all of that? And what's their culture and their climate? So that those are some things. Is this organization, are these people, is this target group really ready for this? There's also the wider issue, of course, of organizational and systemic momentum related to it. Have there been successes in the recent past? Can people say, yes, we did some things 2 years ago and it really worked well? In which case you have a kind of momentum that you can move with. So therefore, what is the morale and the level of engagement that people have? And then there's the question of what we call organizational or systemic change impact. We have to be conscious that in a system, in an organization, the minute you push one piece, there are consequences all over. You know, we were doing some work with a bank in Trinidad some years ago, and it was a merger situation. And I asked in one of the group sessions with some of the managers, I said, you know, who has your contract or one of the people? Let's say Bank A and Bank B. I said, Bank B, who has the contract to provide you with toilet paper? He said, so they told me the Bank B was being bought, and they told me, and I asked Bank A, who's your supplier of toilet paper? And it was a different company. So guess what this merger was affecting? Some company would lose a contract because of the merger. You lose a contract in your organization, impact on your manufacturing and your sales, impact on your employment. There may have been impact on people in that organization because this large organization would have been closing off a contract with them. we don't think about some of the consequences of what we do. So when you push one piece in a system, what else is going to be affected by it? And we have to look at that kind of systemic approach to change. And it's not just about dealing with this person, but this person who is going to do some other things. So we start now with this question of virtual meetings. Sound good, eh? We saving energy. Are we mashing up our marriage, you know? Yeah, because virtual meeting now mean now that, well, you could stay home. I had a friend, he had retired. I hope I'm not stepping on anybody calls here. This friend had retired, and a couple of years later, his wife was about to retire, and I was doing the retirement program, and I met him in there because they invited the spouses in. And he had retired, and he used to be staying home and so on, and he said to me, he said, boy, Tony, my wife going to retire just now, but I had to find something to go and do, yes? Because there's the question of space. There's the question of space, because now somebody is going to be in a space where they weren't before, they were not there before, and how do people handle the things? You know, so we don't often think about things like that, and I say it in jest, but it's a serious issue. How do we, when we make a change, how is it going to affect people? What they have to learn? How is it going to affect them emotionally? How is it going to affect other things? Let me share an example with you. We had, in one of the islands up in the Eastern Caribbean, we were doing some work with a bank. And we had said to them that they were charging $2 for every transaction on the ATM. You know, ATM is a good word in Trinidad, right? So it's a bad word around the rest of the region. But they were doing the $2 for every transaction. And what we worked out was that it cost, any transaction when somebody came into the banking hall was costing the bank about $8. Staff, paper, lineup, security, and so on. So we said, listen, start pushing some people out of the banking hall, drop the $2 charge on the ATM, and let people go and use the ATM. You will save some money, because 2 from 8 is, well, 2 from 8 is not 6. Because when you start to push people out of the banking hall now, what are the consequences of that? Maybe you don't need as many tellers. What are you going to do with them? Are you going to send them home, in which case there's a cost? Or are you going to find other work for them to do that wasn't being done before? What are you going to do with your security? Okay, so people go out to the telling machines, out to the ATMs. More people going out there, more need for security. You have to top up the machines more often. Your maintenance schedule on those machines is going to change. Maybe you have to put in some more machines. So you have some capex costs coming there. So 2 from 8 is not 6. Okay, it sounds like 6 just on the surface. But if you begin to work out the consequences across the system, quite different. There may even have been an impact on the image and the brand of the bank. This was an indigenous bank. So what happened? You're getting like the rest of them now. You don't want to just come in the hall, because people like to go into the banking hall to talk and meet, and you know, so the face of the bank was changing. The banking experience was going to change, and that would have had its costs as well. So those are some of the issues in implementing change. How might we approach some of them? 1, long before the change is introduced, you have to start there. You have to gather data. You have to begin. The whole language of change has to start. We have to link the future challenges to the past successes. Yes, we're going to face these tough things, you know, but you remember 2 years ago when we got through with X? So you want to link to people that there have been some success experiences so that they face the future challenges. And of course, you have to look at it in multiple dimensions. What was it going to do to the board? What's going to happen to the stakeholders, the investors, the shareholders, the wider public? And you brainstorm around scenarios like that, because that is where some of your unintended consequences are going to pop up and hit you in the face. So you want to really spend some time rolling it out and seeing what happens. Some other things that we can do now in terms of facilitating transition. So we looked at promoting transformation, implementing change. How do we facilitate the transition? Well, we have to consider what we call the mythology of change. A lot of mythology around change. This thing will be easy, man. This thing will be quick. Here's all. Just roll it out and send some information out to people and they will move. That's not how change works. It is not quick. It is not easy. It won't be the last. Everybody is not going to buy into it. So you need to test what do people believe about change and begin to prepare for treating with those beliefs and myths. But it's also about the psychology of change. Change requires that people let go of what was, but there's also a way that people like to hold on to what has been. How do we mix that? How do we get people to respect what was? How do we value what was in the past and take some of that forward, but not take everything with you? You know, when you're going, I remember as a young fellow when I was going away, I had this, my father's aunt actually came up to the airport to meet me. And as I was going out to the plane, she kind of came up next to me and just held my hand and put, was that $5, 5 US, put it in my hand, you know, and just squeezed my hand. I guess she was saying, hey, I love you. I'm wishing you all the best. This is all I have, but take this with you. You know, it's that kind of thing. We have pictures, we have emblems, we have lockets. People still have lockets with pictures in them. Yeah, as telling me age here a little bit here now. But you know, there are little things that people carry around with them, not because the past is with them, but a little reminder. How do we respect some things from the past? There are good things that happened back there. It is what got us to where we are. How do we take some of that forward and balance the letting go and the holding on? The emotional responses and listening. Emotions rise up during a time of change. Some people very excited. Look at Jennifer. This is our new strategy and so on. You say, Jennifer, we have a problem with that. Don't worry, man. It's great. You know, we have a strategy. When you get too excited about leading change, somebody is telling you, hey, you have a problem. But if you're too excited, you can't hear. At the same time, there are people who are scared, uncertain, and uneasy. And they can't hear either. So we're sending out the emails. We send out the posters. We go on, we're Facebook. We go on Facebook. We tweeting. We doing everything. But nobody hearing. You know? Sometimes we have to be sending information out does not mean that people are getting it. All right? And partly because during a time of change, emotions go up. When emotions go up, listening goes out. And then, of course, there's a question of behavioral styles and change. Different people need different things. Some people want to know, listen, you see all this workshop and thing, where are we going? Bam. Some people want the big picture. Some people want the facts. Say, listen, I'm prepared to transition to this thing, but I'd like to know exactly how many people, what date are we going to begin, where will this happen, what will happen to this. We don't know that yet, but some people need that kind of information. So we have to be conscious again that in terms of the psychology of it, different kinds of people need different things during the change process. Other issue, okay, let me just, yep. Other issue here, resistance to change. Sometimes, you know, we think of resistance as something bad. It's not. Resistance is a good thing. If there was no resistance, none of us would get anywhere. When I start to walk, I am actually creating some resistance between my foot and the rest of the road. If I try to walk on jello, there's very little resistance and I can't move. So resistance, in fact, is a means for helping us to go forward. But where is the resistance coming from? And very importantly, if we listen to it, it alerts us to what some of the concerns and the issues and problems are. So we need to tune into the resistance points. Sometimes when we're going forward with change, we don't want to hear it, you know. Oh gosh, just come now, man. No, I want to know. I don't like X. It means you have to stop. You have a little more persuading to do, a little more explaining to do. You have to find a different way to say it. You have to find out what is behind the resistance and clear that out. It takes time, but it can in fact be a very valuable part of the change process. And speaking of the change process, let me just take a look at this and help you to understand that this change thing, while the change itself may not be predictable, the process is. The stages in the process are quite predictable. And in the early stages of change, people tend to look to the past. That's where the focus is. And somewhere along the line, the eyes and the mind then goes to face the future. Because in the early stages of change, when we hear that the thing is happening, one of our first responses is, nah, they can't be serious. All right, we go into denial mode. This could never happen. Hey, you hear so and so? No, no way. They can't be serious. And we don't want to accept it. But if the change comes, we then go into another zone that we call the turbulent zone. This is when we start to get really upset. We quarreling, we complaining, we blaming people, we fighting, and who they think they are, and I'm not going along with this, and if they feel we go into, and we go, and we go, and we go. And we quarrel enough, and we let enough bile and venom come out, and you say, anyway, like they're serious, yes, so let me see what